Good day, friends. This is Michael, and this is The Sports Story. On today's podcast, it's another podcast of Mixed Bag. Basically, the podcast that I do a lot of different sports in. Usually, I do one sport a night that I cover, but I haven't done a podcast in a while. I haven't done a mixed bag in a while, so I figured to get caught up, I'm just going to get a mixed bag in. And I have about 4 different sports I'm going to cover, a couple questions that I've thought of and have been thinking of, and so we're just going to get right into it. The reason why I haven't done a podcast in a couple days is because my friend David, if you don't know him, he was in the 4th episode. It was a UFC podcast. We were covering a UFC fight night. I believe it was the Curtis Blades fight night, if I am remembering correctly, which I believe I am. And just one of my day one friends. I'm blessed to have like 5 to 7 really, really good friends that I call best friends. And David, he came through clutch with some Lakers versus Bucks tickets. So I gotta go see Giannis Antetokounmpo and LeBron James play a basketball game in the amazing building, the Staples Center. So much history, so much basketball has been played there, so many legends that building has produced, seen, and it was just a pleasure to go check out the culture in LA, which was a really awesome vibe, but to really see the King play. That was my first time ever watching LeBron James play live, something that many people may not ever get the chance to do. So and Giannis Antetokounmpo, watching them go head to head. It's an opportunity that not a lot of people get, and I'm just blessed that David made this dream come true for me. So David, to you, thank you again for the tickets. And I wasn't the first option for this though, so don't be thinking, oh, David, it's nice. It is very nice. I do really, really appreciate it. But David was going to take somebody else. I'll leave it at that. And to start this show, I'm thinking about who is going to be the NBA MVP of this season. And I think this weekend, LeBron James has really established himself the front runner. It's really his to lose. And Giannis right now is actually out. So they're on a tough road trip. Giannis definitely struggled on it, as not only did they lose to the Lakers, and LeBron James pretty much just dominated. LeBron James and the Lakers went on an 18-point run that, again, LeBron James led and just dominated the Bucks. It was only a 10-point win, but the game was never close. In the beginning, maybe first quarter, second quarter maybe, but again, as soon as LeBron went on that 18-point run with his team, nobody doubted that the Lakers were going to take that, and LeBron James was actually guarding Giannis. Actually guarding him and stopping him, putting clamps on Antetokounmpo. And it was something that we've been wanting to see. I know a lot of his critics have been really bashing him on switching on screens, going to the easier defensive person, and he really put on for the MVP because he knew that this is for the MVP. The MVP voters are going to look at this game and say, what are you going to do, LeBron? And he did it. And then Sunday, he took on the LA Clippers, and he beat them, went toe-to-toe with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and got that win for that scheduled rematch it was supposed to be the week of Kobe Bryant's passing, but got rescheduled to Sunday, and it was another dominant performance by LeBron, and another performance where the critics are singing a lot of praise, even Skip Bayless. And as we're on this conversation of MVP, and if I wasn't clear, I believe LeBron James is going to win the MVP this season. And something that's been going on that I really like talking about is Luka Doncic versus Zion Williamson and comparing them. Which one do I think is going to have an MVP first? I think we discussed who's going to have the better career. And for me, I'm going to have to say that I believe Zion Williamson is going to win the MVP over Luka Doncic. And I think Luka Doncic is going to win it over Zion sometimes as well. But the first person to win an MVP, I believe, is going to be Zion Williamson because he doesn't have a Kristaps Porzingis. If you really want to call Brandon Ingram better than Kristaps Porzingis, I would have to disagree. And I think Luka Doncic may have a better chance just because of the triple doubles he gets and the amount of actual contribution he can give to a team. But I think when Zion really gets his wheels going, I think he's going to be a triple double walking around as well. He gets involved in defense a lot, and defense down in the post when he's blocking and stuff. He does have some defensive tendencies where he lets people get by him and stuff, but Luka Doncic, he's a way worse defensive liability than Zion is. And I think both of these guys are going to be, again, huge in the NBA, but the first person to win an MVP is going to be Zion. And while I was in Los Angeles, we went to a bar that was right outside of Staples Center, and we got a 40-ounce beer, we being David and myself, and it was huge. Like, I couldn't even pick it up with one hand. I could, but it was just uncomfortable, and I could if I gripped the entire glass. The metal handles, they were a little hard, and when you poured it back while you're trying to take a drink, the metal would press up against your knuckles, up into the glass, and it wasn't very comfortable. So you had to, not only did you have to hold it with two hands to chug it, but it also took me like 20 minutes to drink it as well. And we were trying to drink it pretty fast, and it did not happen for me. And that 20 minutes while I was chugging that beer, we were watching the Vegas Knights versus the Winnipeg Jets. And this is the transition into the National Hockey League. And the Vegas Knights, they are the team that just happened like a year and a half ago. Like, their first game as a franchise was a year and a half ago. And then a year later, they won the championship, and now they're looking to go win it again as they're a high-seeded team. And the Winnipeg Jets were able to go in there, show the defensive prowess that they have, and show the offensive dominance that the Winnipeg Jets have. And we won that game 4-0 on the defending champs. And for a team that is really pushing hard to get a playoff seed, it's really good to go 4-0, not just beat them 1-0, but to have 4-0, because in hockey, it is not only wins. I don't think wins count as much as goals do. So getting into the playoffs, it's whoever has the most goals. So not only were we able to hold the Vegas Knights, a prolific scoring team, we were able to beat them and just dominate them 4-0. And do I believe the Jets are going to make the playoffs? I do not. I don't. Because we had a really good defensive player in there, and was his name Buffington? And it was a really, really big piece for the Jets, and he decided that he didn't want to play hockey anymore, and it really messed up our defense. So I think going through these runs, I think our offense and defense are going to be able to play well, but when we reach the last 5 to 4 games, when it really, really matters, I don't think our defense is going to be able to hold up enough to get us those for sure wins. Even though I hope we do, I just have to see it to believe it. And the reason why I like the Winnipeg Jets, if you don't know, is because of my buddy Grant, and he lives in Seattle. So just going in and checking in on Seattle and what's happening. The Seattle Dragons, they got dominated this year, this week again. We're like 1-4 now, and it's not good. It's not a good season for the Seattle Dragons. Our fans are still going out there putting on. And BJ Daniels, he looked really good. We actually gave the Houston Roughnecks a run for their money. So we're a good team. We have potential going into season 2, hopefully. But I think this season we're pretty much tanking and trying to get that number 1 pick in the draft, as far as I can tell. And that's just kind of going right into the XFL Week 5 MVP. And that is clear and easy PJ Walker. They dominated the Dragons, and this is like his 3rd Week 5 MVP, and he's also the guy who I have winning the MVP overall this year. Again, a Lamar Jackson of this XFL team. He can throw it. He's going to run if you give him his seam. He makes brilliant plays, and sometimes his kind of youngness to the league, just because this is a first arena, and he never really got that offensive experience, as he was only in a couple training camps and stuff behind Andrew Luck. And when you're playing behind Andrew Luck, you're not going to get many snaps, so he never had the end game. So it's really impressive as well to see his decision making being so crisp, not having that experience as some of these other quarterbacks in the XFL has. Josh Landry is somebody that comes to mind. And even though Cardale Jones doesn't have much experience either, he still got quite a bit in New York for the Jets. So he should be playing a little better. And he was even able to get a win finally. And the DC Defenders are looking good. I want to give Cardale Jones a quick shout out, because the Washington Defenders are really putting something together, and they're really trying to keep that playoff seed. And I think if Cardale Jones could come back to himself, I think that the DC Defenders will definitely make the playoffs. And this is the next segment, and my first real segment of the podcast. I guess not really. I guess Betting with Michael's a segment. So this is the second segment of the podcast history, and I am excited to give you this segment, and we're going to be calling it Quick Headline Takes. I'm calling it Quick Headline Takes because we all see the headlines. I'm looking at on ESPN, Bleacher Report, pretty interesting headlines that I like to read the articles, and there's also those headlines on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those clickbaity articles that you really want to talk about, or that you read and have immediate thoughts like, this is ridiculous, or this isn't so ridiculous, could this happen? And for that, all those headlines, I would like to make a segment just for those quick headline takes coming at you right now. First question on quick headline takes is, will the 49ers try for the Tom Brady sweepstakes? I think they would be dumb not to. I think Tom Brady still has a couple years left in him, and I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a quarterback that's going to win you a Super Bowl. I don't think his decision making just isn't there. I think if he would have thrown the ball more than 8 times in that Minnesota Vikings game, Minnesota would have came away with that game. But you could tell in that second quarter when Eric Kendricks made that interception, they just gave it to Raheem Mostert, and hats off to Kyle Shanahan and Raheem Mostert for making that happen. But I just think that they're going to need more, and with Emmanuel Sanders now saying that he will not, or they're having doubts on Emmanuel Sanders staying because they're not going to be able to keep him and Eric Armstead. and a couple other big signings that they want to make. And I think that getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and paying Tom Brady near the same amount, they have the cap space for it, getting rid of Jimmy G. And I think they'll be better off for it. I think 49ers would rather have at least a Super Bowl with the quarterback that's going to play for 2 to 3 years than the next 10 years of no Super Bowl. And maybe not, but I think it'll happen that way. And I want to say I'll think it's happening for sure, because there's a lot of teams that are going to make a lot of compelling offers to Tom Brady, and he's going to be the only one besides him and Giselle are going to have to, his supermodel wife, are going to have to discuss what they want. But 49ers would be definitely make me a 49ers fan. And the next quick headline takes, they definitely need to be a lot faster than that, is after this XFL season, will there be another one? As I kind of alluded to when I was talking to about the XFL in the last little bit of the show, I believe there will be. I think there's going to be a good draft. I think there's going to be a lot of free agency buzz. There's definitely going to be a lot on my page. So if you're an XFL fan and you want some XFL more in-depth coverage, I'm definitely the guy to go to. And please let me know if you need more, if I need to be talking a little bit more about more takes and more hypothesis in a way, and less just facts. So for all my XFL people, I'll do my best to give you XFL news, as it's not covered in the ESPN, Foxes, and other places like that. It's covered a little bit, but not as much as giving a full 30-minute segment to it as I try to do for you guys. And that being said, even though the ESPN and Fox don't really cover it, that's where I kind of have a pause to say, is there going to be another XFL season? But I believe Vince McMahon and the commissioner, Oliver Luck, I think these two gentlemen are very smart and very good at marketing the XFL, saying the right things at the right time, knowing when not to say anything, and disciplining the refs when they make a bad call, and actually showing accountability, showing us the accountability of what happens when a referee makes a bad call. And the next quick headline take is the headliner of UFC 249. That's going to be Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. I wanted to hit this one up because Daniel Cormier on the UFC 248, I think Daniel Cormier was talking about it being really hyped, and Joe Rogan on the video, if you type in Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov hype tape from the UFC, it says, Joe Rogan says, this is the most anticipated fight in UFC history. And you would think back to a lot of really, really big fights, big names that have fought that everybody was really excited to watch. And is this the most anticipated? And it's a yes, because even though it might not be the biggest fight, it's the most anticipated, because this fight was supposed to go down 3 to 4 years ago. And because of Khabib either missing weight or Tony Ferguson getting injured when he tripped on that cable, or just whatever it is, both gentlemen have played their parts in getting the fights canceled or not happening. But just because they've been canceled, it's like when John Jones and Daniel Cormier fights, when they got canceled, nobody was like, oh, I hope they just don't fight. No, it's like, when's going to be the next date? When can they fight again? And everybody's going to be talking about it. Ariel Helwani himself on the ESPN MMA show, he talks about this fight and how big it's going to be for that division and for the sport. And I can't wait. And my prediction is Tony Ferguson's coming out with it. I'm not a big Khabib fan. I think he's just much more of a wrestler than a stand-up fighter. Though in Conor McGregor's fight, he showed that he can stand up. And Al Iaquinta's fight with Khabib, about 2 or 3 fights prior to Khabib's fight with Conor, Al Iaquinta rocked Khabib. It was one of the first times we've actually seen him like wobble. And so he's definitely human. We've definitely seen him be rocked before. And I think Tony Ferguson just has the heart and the durability to stuff the takedowns of Khabib. And I'm going to talk about that more. Don't worry, there'll definitely be a UFC 249 pre-podcast and then an after podcast for that as well. And actually, while we're on that subject, there'll actually be a fight companion for this fight. April 19th. Me and Grant, we're going to do a fight companion. I'm going up to Seattle for one of the last cards that me and him watched together. He came down here to Eugene, so I'm definitely going to make that effort to go up to him and get this fight companion. I've already asked him, and he already told me it was cool, so that's definitely in the books. And that's it for quick headline takes, and we're just going to go right into the UFC for the last little bit of this podcast. Neil Magny returned to the octagon this Saturday for the UFC 248 pay-per-view. And Neil Magny, he's one of my all-time favorite fighters, as he is a very tall, very skinny type of guy, and that's exactly who I am. He uses excellent decision-making skills and uses his length to stay on that outside and really attack inside, just making really smart moves. I can't really break down how he does it, as I don't want to talk about the X's of O's of sport, as I don't have much experience playing, and I would hate to look foolish trying to explain what somebody's doing and then they tell me I wasn't trying to do that at all. But I can say without a doubt he likes to stay on that outside and pick his marks, and as soon as he stuns somebody or wobbles them, he goes and he usually tries to end the fight there, and that's pretty much what he was able to do with Jing Liang, and got the impressive stop and just looked great in his return. He, for personal reasons, he said after his last fight a year ago, said that his head wasn't in it, needed to take some time off and get back in. And he said he feels great. He's never felt better. That was definitely one of his most dominant and amazing fights that we've seen. That's coming straight from the commentators. It was just a great fight, and I look forward to seeing Neil Magny return to the octagon for more fighting action. And just getting right into, as I'm running out of time here, Weili versus Joanna. Weili Zhang versus Joanna the Queen Jacek. This is one of the greatest fights in UFC history, because these two women put on for 5 rounds, and it was a close split decision for Weili Zhang to retain her title. And Joanna, again, I think this is like her 3rd time now, 4th time now losing in title fights. But thankfully the women's division is so small, and she put on such a great fight that was very entertaining, that fans want to watch her again, and she'll definitely get more fights. And if she strings together a 4 to 5 win streak with some of the younger females in the division, I believe that she might get another opportunity, just because of how hard and just how great of a fight this was. Again, one of the best fights in UFC history, and that really made up for the main fight, Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. And to begin this fight, Yoel Romero literally just he didn't do anything. He just stood still, had his hands up, and just looked at Israel Adesanya, waiting for Israel Adesanya to make a move. And Israel Adesanya was trying to dance with him. As he said, it takes 2 to tango, and Yoel Romero did not show up to this fight wanting to dance, and it takes 2 to dance. And Israel Adesanya is trying to do his foot movement, head movement, trying to get a feel for the fight, as all fighters have to do. And Yoel Romero is just standing there, like not wanting to be even a part of the fight. And you kind of know why he's doing this, because Israel Adesanya goes in for a strike, And Yoel Romero just punches the lights out. Not really. He didn't really punch his lights out, but he punched him hard. And Israel Adesanya, at the end of the fight, said that was probably one of the hardest punches he's been hit with, and definitely the hardest punch of the fight. And it wasn't able to get him down. And Yoel Romero just kept playing that game. Kept playing the fighting still and just trying to land a shot with all of his energy in it, because he knew he couldn't dance with Israel Adesanya. So that was going to be his chance, and it's pretty sad. It was his last title fight chance, and he pretty much squandered it. I mean, he's another guy who has now three lost middleweight fights. And the middleweight division, it's not as bare as the female division, so he's probably not going to see another title shot again, which is sad. But it was nice for Israel Adesanya to get the win. He played the smart game. It was just such a disappointing fight because I love Israel Adesanya, and I love watching him because he always, when he fights, he kind of like, it's as he's showing us what he's trained, and he's not just doing the same thing every fight. And you can see this in the fights. It's always a little different. It's always something else. He's always adding stuff, as he says, and it's really beautiful. And when he doesn't get the opportunity to let loose and let stuff go, it's just real disappointing. And Yoel Romero robbed us of that. And I hope we don't see him for another long time. He's definitely an old dude. It went to a decision card. Romero tried to fight the last minute because he's like, I'm just going to knock him out in the last minute. And he tried to like point at the ground and stuff and say, let's go, let's go. And Israel Adesanya knows. Yoel Romero's not tired. He's just been standing there. He's not tired. If I go 1 minute punch for punch with him, I'm going to get knocked out. So he said, no, I'm already winning on the cards. I know this for sure. I'm just going to back up. Nope. Sorry. I tried to dance with you. I tried to fight with you. And he even flipped Yoel Romero off because Yoel Romero was trying to call him names and stuff for running away. But Israel, it was definitely the smart move because, again, he was already winning. And if Romero wanted to fight, he had 4.5 other rounds he could have fought Israel Adesanya on. And this is the end of this mixed bag. The mixed bag of the Sports Story podcast. I want to get out a quick shout out to my social media. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, like, review, comment. Let me know how it's going, because I'm doing a lot. I'm trying to pump them out as much as I can, and your guys' input really helps me grow as a podcaster, and I appreciate everything, and I hope you all have a good night, friends.